Public Communications Operator Smith.
Hey, I live out still stores.
Okay.
There's break-ins out here. There's a guy in the house right now. It's a house under construction.
Okay, do you have your address or that house's address?
Right at 219 or 220 Satilla Drive.
And you said someone's breaking into it right now?
No, it's all open. It's under construction. And he's running right now. There he goes right now.
Okay, what is he doing?
He's running down the street.
Okay.
Back into the
Okay, that's fine. I'll get them out there. I just need to know what he was doing wrong. Was he just on the premises and not supposed to be?
Stuff on it. And he's been caught on the camera a bunch before at night. It's kind of an ongoing thing out here. The man that's building the house has got heart issues. I think he's not going to finish it. So.
Okay, that's fine. And you said it was a male in a black t-shirt?
A white t-shirt. Black guy, white t-shirt. And he's done running back into the neighborhood.
Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old man with a passion for running, laced up his shoes and set out for his usual jog. He loved to run. It was something he had done for years to stay in shape and clear his mind. He often ran through different neighborhoods, including Satilla Shores. As he ran through the neighborhood, Ahmaud passed by a house under construction. The house was open, with no doors or windows installed yet. Many people had walked through it before, out of curiosity. The homeowner had security cameras inside, and they recorded Ahmaud stepping in for a few minutes, looking around, and then leaving. He didn't touch anything. He didn't take anything. He simply walked out, looked around, and continued his run. He used to pass by this house every time he jogged through this route, as a kind of checkpoint. But a neighbor saw him and called 911. In the call, the dispatcher asked what the man was doing wrong. The caller couldn't really say, only that Ahmaud was there and that he was running away. At the same time, Gregory McMichael, a retired police officer and former investigator, was standing in his driveway. He spotted Ahmaud running down the street. Gregory did not know who Ahmaud was. He did not know that Ahmaud had left without taking anything. He had no real reason to be suspicious, but he assumed Ahmaud was a criminal. Without hesitation, Gregory rushed inside and grabbed his .357 Magnum revolver. He called for his son, Travis McMichael, telling him to bring his shotgun. Travis quickly joined his father, and within minutes, they jumped into their white pickup truck and sped off, determined to chase down Ahmaud. Ahmaud was still just running, completely unaware of the danger behind him. The McMichaels caught up with him quickly, yelling at him to stop. But Ahmaud, knowing he had done nothing wrong, kept running. He was unarmed, alone, and scared. The McMichaels, however, were armed and determined. They drove ahead of him and blocked his path, forcing him to turn around. Ahmaud had no choice but to change direction, but they continued following him. That's when William Roddy Bryan, a neighbor, saw the chase. Instead of helping Ahmaud, he joined in the hunt. He got into his own truck and started recording the pursuit with his phone. Bryan used his truck to block Ahmaud's path multiple times. Ahmaud was now trapped between two trucks, one in front and one behind. For nearly 5 minutes, Ahmaud tried everything to escape. He sprinted faster, changed directions, and even tried running through people's yards. But the trucks kept following him, cutting him off at every turn. At one point, Bryan's truck nearly hit Ahmaud as he tried to escape. As the chase neared its end of Holmes Road, Bryan's phone camera captured what happened next.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm out here at Satilla Shores. There's a black male running down the street.
Where at Satilla Shores?
I don't know what street we're on. Stop right there! Is it? Stop! Travis!
Sir, hello, sir. Sir, where you at? Hello? Hello?
Ahmaud tried to run around the truck, but Travis stepped into his path, blocking him again. They were now just a few feet apart. Ahmaud had no way out. Travis fired the first shot. Ahmaud grabbed the shotgun, trying to push it away, but Travis fired again. Ahmaud fought back, struggling for control of the gun. He was outnumbered, unarmed, and exhausted. Then, the third and final shot was fired. It struck Ahmaud in the chest. He stumbled forward a few steps before collapsing onto the pavement. Gregory McMichael climbed down from the truck and checked Ahmaud's body, not to help, but to check if he was dead. Minutes later, first responders arrived. Ahmaud's body lay in the road, his running shoes covered in dust, his shirt stained with blood. He had no weapons. He had no stolen goods. He had only been out for a run.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to try and do something for him. So I get these gloves on. Got any first aid kit? Any weapons on him, do you know of? Damn.
He's 8 or 9. He's in Baker 9, Satilla Drive and Holmes Road.
When police officers from the Glynn County Police Department, GCPD, arrived on February 23, 2020, Ahmaud's body was still lying in the road, his blood staining the pavement.
Just stay over there for me, sir. Yeah. Just stay over there. I recognize you now.
Yeah.
McMichael, right?
McMichael, yeah. That's my son, Travis.
Okay. Yeah, just hang out over there for me. All right. Yeah, there's nothing I can do for this gentleman. It's like shotgun slug to the center chest. He was on his stomach when I got here. I rolled him over. He stopped breathing a couple of minutes ago.
Right here, right?
I don't know. I know he's got one right there.
Yeah. We can't work that. Rescue section is back. That is blow this whole arm. Yeah. How long ago?
Hadn't been that long.
You seen him breathing?
Rising. It was a gasp. It was sucking. I could hear it gurgling when he was on his stomach. I didn't know what the extent was until I turned him over.
How much blood is who's this guy right here?
I don't want to shot him, I think.
Oh, no.
I don't think he doesn't have any injuries. He's not complaining about any injuries.
Yet, despite the violent nature of the scene, the officers did not detain or treat the McMichaels and William Bryan as suspects. Instead, they acted like nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Gregory McMichael, who had spent more than 30 years working in law enforcement and was retired for less than a year, first as a police officer, then as an investigator for the district attorney's office, was known from the department. The responding officers addressed him casually and asked him how he was doing. No one placed Gregory and his son in handcuffs. Instead, the police let them explain the killing in their own words, reassuring them and telling them that everything will be okay.
I recognize you now.
Yeah.
McMichael, right?
McMichael, yeah. That's my son, Travis.
Okay.
I knew y'all would take him down.
Yeah, he's gonna have the interview.
Yeah. Y'all don't put him in cuffs, are you?
No. Why would you be in cuffs? You're also, we're going to give you a ride to headquarters. You're going to talk to some investigators. Say everything's got to be done right.
I know.
Okay.
I want it done right.
I got you. So.
It just doesn't look good. I mean, it just shot at me. Last thing I've ever done want to do in my life.
Trust me, can truly understand that.
Playing with my kid. Next thing you know, this. Any weapons on him? Do you know of? I don't know. You mind holding your hands out? And how'd you say you got that blood on you?
He had his arm, when he went down, face down, and his arm was tucked up underneath him. And I didn't know if he was going for a weapon or what, because at that point he was still breathing.
Yeah.
So I pulled his arm out to see if there was a weapon in it.
Right.
And once I realized there wasn't, that's okay. the only contact I had with him.
I mean, if the guy would have stopped, you know, I mean, find out what was going on, he obviously was up to something. I mean, this would have never happened. You know, should we have been chasing him? I don't know. I mean, but, yeah, no, at that point one time when I cornered him up over here, he was trying to get in my truck. He tried to get in my door.
Incredibly, despite Gregory's own words proving that they had no real justification, the officers let him and Travis go home that day, free men. After the shooting, the case was given to District Attorney Jackie Johnson, who had previously worked with Gregory McMichael. This was a clear conflict of interest. Instead of stepping aside, Johnson protected McMichael by preventing the police from making arrests. She only recused herself after public pressure, but by then, the case had already been delayed, allowing the McMichaels to remain free. The case was then handed to District Attorney George Barnhill, creating another cover-up. Barnhill also had a conflict of interest. His son had worked with McMichael, but he failed to disclose this. Instead of stepping down, he let the McMichaels walk free for weeks while defending their actions. Before recusing himself on April 2nd, 2020, Barnhill wrote a letter justifying the killing. He called it a justifiable homicide, claiming the McMichaels were making a legal citizen's arrest and that Travis McMichael shot in self-defense when Ahmaud resisted. It wasn't until Ahmaud's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, began demanding answers that Barnhill was finally pressured to recuse himself. But even after he stepped down, the case stalled once again. After Barnhill's departure, the case was transferred again, this time to District Attorney Tom Durden. For another 6 weeks, nothing happened. No arrests, no investigation, no updates. If it had been up to the local authorities, this case would have disappeared completely. But everything changed when the full video leaked. On May 5th, 2020, the video recorded by William Roddy Bryan surfaced online, showing the final moments of Ahmaud Arbery's life. Within hours, the video spread across social media and went viral. News stations broadcasted the footage nationwide. Celebrities, politicians, and activists demanded accountability, while protesters filled the streets.
All right, I figured it out. I've got my hat on backwards. I'm shirtless, like I'm on some episode of Cops. I'm running with the TV. Someone's gonna stop me now for sure. Because if not, what was the problem with Ahmaud?
Under immense public pressure, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, took over the case. The GBI wasted no time. On May 7th, 2020, just 2 days after taking over the case, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation arrested Gregory and Travis McMichael, charging them with felony murder and aggravated assault. 2 weeks later, on May 21st, William Roddy Bryan was also arrested and charged with felony murder and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment for using his truck to help trap Ahmaud during the chase. As investigators finally began reviewing the facts, the McMichaels' defense crumbled. Ahmaud had not committed any crime before being chased, and the McMichaels had no immediate knowledge of any wrongdoing. The citizen's arrest law did not apply, and no 911 calls were made before the pursuit. The only burglary reported in the neighborhood had happened 2 months earlier, and the stolen item, a firearm, had been taken from Travis McMichael's own unlocked truck. Travis McMichael himself admitted to police that Ahmaud had never threatened them at any point before the shooting. Every attempt to justify the killing had collapsed, and the cover-up had failed. As more details emerged, the U.S. Department of Justice launched a federal hate crime investigation, uncovering disturbing evidence of racially motivated intent. Investigators found racist text messages and social media posts from Travis McMichael filled with racial slurs and violent comments targeting black people, calling them vermin, savages, monkeys, and that he needed to make an example out of somebody. Additionally, authorities discovered Confederate imagery on the McMichaels' truck, further linking them to racist ideology. By the time the trial began in November 2021, the murder of Ahmaud Arbery had become one of the most closely watched cases in the country. The trial took place in Glynn County Superior Court, with Judge Timothy Walmsley presiding. The charges against the 3 men were severe. They faced counts of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. Their entire defense rested on an old Georgia law, the citizen's arrest law, which, at the time, allowed private individuals to detain someone if they had immediate knowledge of a crime. The prosecution argued that this law did not apply because Ahmaud had not committed any crime. The McMichaels had no real reason to suspect him of anything, yet they chose to chase him down with guns. Even before opening statements, the jury selection process was complicated. The final jury consisted of 11 white jurors and only 1 black juror, despite Glynn County having a 27% black population. The defense team had used its legal strikes to remove 11 out of 12 black jurors. Judge Walmsley acknowledged that the jury selection process showed intentional discrimination, but under the law, he could not overturn the defense's justifications for removing them. When the trial officially began, the prosecution, led by Linda Dunikoski, presented the case that the McMichaels and Bryan had acted as vigilantes, chasing Ahmaud based on assumptions and racial bias rather than any actual evidence. The jury was shown the full video recorded by William Roddy Bryan, which captured Ahmaud's final moments. The prosecution called multiple law enforcement officers and forensic experts to analyze the case. Investigators testified that at no point did the McMichaels call 911 before initiating the chase, but rather just before the shooting.
Glen Brunswick Communications, Operator Smith.
Hey, I live out in Steel Shores.
Okay.
Break-ins out here. There's a guy in the house right now. It's a house under construction.
Okay, do you have your address or that house's address?
Right at 219 or 220 Secilla Drive.
And you said someone's breaking into it right now?
No, it's all open. It's under construction. And he's running right now. There he goes right now.
Okay, what is he doing?
He's running down the street. Call
Okay.
Back into the
Okay, that's fine. I'll get them out there. I just need to know what he was doing wrong. Was he just on the premises and not supposed to be?
Stuff on it, and he's been caught on the camera a bunch before at night. It's kind of an ongoing thing out here. The man that's building the house has got heart issues. I think he's not going to finish it. So.
Okay, that's fine. And you said it was a male in a black t-shirt?
A white t-shirt, black guy, white t-shirt, and he's done running back into the neighborhood.
They also presented Travis McMichael's own statements to the police, where he admitted that Ahmaud had never spoken to them, never threatened them, and had only been running when they started following him. These statements directly contradicted the self-defense claim and proved that Ahmaud had not been the aggressor. One of the most damaging pieces of evidence was the introduction of racist messages and social media posts made by Travis McMichael, especially about his own daughter dating a black man. While some of these details were limited in the state trial, they would later play a major role in the federal hate crime case. The defense team built their case around justification and self-defense, arguing that the McMichaels had a legal right to pursue Ahmaud because they believed he had been involved in previous break-ins. They insisted that their actions were not racially motivated, but were instead an attempt to protect their neighborhood. Travis McMichael took the stand in his own defense, a risky move that actually ended up hurting his case. He testified that he and his father had seen security footage of a man entering the under-construction home and believed it was the same person. He claimed they only wanted to question Ahmaud, but when he didn't stop running, they found it suspicious. However, under cross-examination, Travis admitted that Ahmaud never verbally threatened them, never brandished a weapon, and never said anything aggressive before they blocked him in the street. Gregory McMichael did not testify, nor did William Bryan. Instead, Bryan's attorney tried to distance him from the McMichaels, arguing that Bryan did not have a gun and was only a witness to what happened. The prosecution, however, rejected this, proving that Bryan had actively participated in the chase, using his truck to block Ahmaud's path multiple times. During closing arguments, defense attorney Laura Hogue, representing Gregory McMichael, made a disturbing statement about Ahmaud's appearance, saying that he had long, dirty toenails. Many saw this as an attempt to dehumanize Ahmaud and justify the killing.
He was messy. He sometimes refused to wear socks or take good care of his good clothing. I wish he would have cut and cleaned his toenails before he went out for that jog that day. I guess he would have if he knew he would be murdered. My family is gonna miss Ahmaud. We're going to miss his jokes, his impersonations, his warm smile.
After 12 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a historic verdict on November 24, 2021. Travis McMichael was found guilty on all counts, including malice murder, meaning the jury believed he intentionally killed Ahmaud without justification. Gregory McMichael was found guilty of felony murder, but not malice murder, indicating that while he participated in the crime, he was not the primary shooter. William Bryan was also convicted of felony murder, though he was acquitted of some of the more severe charges. The sentencing phase took place on January 7, 2022. Judge Timothy Walmsley handed down the maximum penalty possible for the McMichaels, sentencing both Gregory and Travis to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 20 years for other charges. William Bryan was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Before announcing the sentences, Judge Walmsley paused for 1 full minute in silence, symbolizing the time Ahmaud spent running for his life before being shot. After the state trial, the defendants also faced federal hate crime charges, which focused on the racial motivations behind the killing. On February 22, 2022, a federal jury found all 3 men guilty of hate crimes, attempted kidnapping, and using a firearm in a crime of violence. In August 2022, they were sentenced to additional life sentences in federal prison. In response to the murder and the failings of the legal system, Georgia repealed its outdated citizens' arrest law, ensuring that no one else would suffer the same fate under a law that had been misused for centuries. Ahmaud's life was taken too soon and for no reason. His name will be remembered, not just as a victim, but as a symbol of the fight against racial injustice. May he rest in peace. Thank you for staying until the end of this video, and I will see you soon for the next case. Stay safe.
I'm an off-duty officer. I thought it was in my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking it was my apartment.
He shot someone?
Yes, I thought it was my apartment. I'm fucked. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Okay, and where are you at right now?
On the evening of September 6, 2018, Amber Guyger finished her long day at work, completing a shift that lasted almost 14 hours. She was a police officer with the Dallas Police Department and had spent her day helping a special team arrest suspects. By the time she drove back home, Amber was extremely tired. As she parked her truck in the apartment building's garage, she did not realize she had parked on the wrong floor. Instead of parking on the 3rd floor where her apartment was, she accidentally parked on the 4th floor. While she walked toward what she thought was her apartment, Amber was busy texting another police officer with whom she had a romantic relationship. These messages distracted her, making it harder for her to pay attention to her surroundings. Without realizing it, she went to the apartment located directly above her own, apartment number 1478, which belonged to a man called Botham Jean. Although there were clear signs that Amber was at the wrong apartment, she did not notice any of them. For example, Botham had a bright red doormat outside his door, something Amber never had at her apartment. Additionally, the hallway and surroundings looked slightly different from her floor. Still distracted, Amber approached the door, which she later said was not completely closed. When she placed her key into the lock, the door moved open easily because of a broken lock that often didn't close correctly. Inside the apartment, Botham Jean was relaxing in his living room. He was dressed comfortably, wearing a t-shirt and shorts, watching TV, and eating ice cream. Botham was also completely unaware that someone was entering his home. When Amber opened the door and stepped inside, she was immediately frightened. She saw Botham and believed he was an intruder who had entered her apartment. Without clearly seeing who he was or allowing him to explain, Amber reacted quickly and fired her weapon 2 times. One of the shots hit Botham directly in his chest. Realizing her mistake, Amber immediately panicked, calling 911.
Get up, man.
Dallas 911, this is Carla. Where's your emergency?
Hi, this is an off-duty officer. I need EMS. I'm in number.
What's your address? Do you need police as well or just EMS?
Yes, I need both.
Okay, what's the address?
I'm at apartment number 1478. I'm in 1478.
And what's the address there?
It's 1210 South Lamar, 1478. Yeah.
What's going on?
I'm an off-duty officer. I thought it was in my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking it was my apartment.
He shot someone?
Yes, I thought it was my apartment. I'm fucked. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Okay, and where are you at right now?
I'm in, what do you mean? I'm inside the apartment with him. Hey, bud. Hey, bud. Hey, bud. Oh my God. Oh, fuck. I thought it was my apartment.
I understand. No, we have help
I
on the
thought
way.
it was my
Okay,
apartment.
Lamar.
Hey, bud. Hey, bud. They're coming. They're bud. I'm sorry, man.
Okay, where was he shot?
He's on the top left.
Botham was rushed to a hospital nearby, but sadly, his injuries were too serious. He passed away shortly afterward. Botham Shem Jean was born on September 29, 1991, in Castries, St. Lucia. St. Lucia is a small island in the Caribbean. He loved leading songs at his local church. Botham moved from St. Lucia to the United States to go to college. He attended Harding University, located in Arkansas, where he studied accounting. At Harding University, he became very popular among his friends and teachers because of his friendly, positive attitude. He was involved in many activities, including leadership roles in student groups and religious communities. He also directed the university's gospel choir. After finishing college in 2016, Botham moved to Dallas, Texas, where he began working as an accountant for a big, respected company called PricewaterhouseCoopers. Amber Guyger lived in the same building as Botham. She was born in Texas and had been a police officer for about 5 years. During that time, she earned respect at her job and was promoted to a special group of officers who responded to serious crimes called the Crime Response Team. Right after the tragic event, police officers and medical teams rushed to the Southside Flats apartments to help Botham Jean. Sadly, his injuries were too serious, and he could not be saved. The police interviewed Amber Guyger, who appeared extremely upset and confused, repeatedly telling officers that she believed she had entered her own apartment. She explained many times to emergency responders, "I thought it was my apartment," showing clear distress and panic.
All right, guys, I'm Dave Armstrong with the Texas Rangers, Ranger Laura Simmons. Before we get started, let me go ahead and read your Miranda rights. Okay? You have the right to remain silent and not make any statement at all, and any statement you make may be used against you at your trial. Understand that? Any statement you make may be used as evidence against you in court. Understand that? Yes, sir. You have the right to have a lawyer present to advise you prior to and during any questioning. Understand that? If you're unable to employ a lawyer, you have the right to have a lawyer appointed to advise you prior to and during any questioning. Do you understand that? Yes. And you have the right to terminate the interview at any time. Understand that? Okay. And these are your attorneys here, right? Yes. Would everybody identify themselves for me for the record?
John Snyder, SNIDER.
Robert Rogers. Hey, can I get your name and date of birth?
Amber Guyger. He did start being aggressive. He started going, "Hey, hey," and to me, you're yelling at me like, "Oh, you're about to kill me. You're about to do something." In my home, there's an intruder. Mm-hmm. You're not listening to me. You're moving around. You're in the back towards the window, and then you advance towards like the front near the counter. So I still can't see your hands. You're not listening to me. You're gonna kill me. And their reaction, if you get caught, "Oh hell, I'm getting out. You're the one that's gonna be out of luck, I guess. Like I would have been the one that would have died. I thought he was gonna kill me. I really did.
You holstered up and walked me through that.
After I shoot, I still have my gun out. I walk midway to the countertop island, and I see you down. So I get on my knees and holster up, calling 911, trying to do compressions and stay on the phone with 911. I'm telling him, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm like, hey, bud, stay with me. Until this. But I got to the point. I thought it was my apartment. I thought it was my apartment. It was my apartment. And I told him, and I couldn't tell the operator I didn't know what apartment number. I had to walk outside. And I walked back in and continued trying. And I'm telling him, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying. I did not. I just wanted to go home that night. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to pick up my dog today. That's all I wanted to do. I did not. There was somebody in my apartment. I thought it was. I told him I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No one else sorry. I was trying to stay calm to the operator. I was trying. He was gonna kill me. Then when I was staying in that door, it was my apartment. It was mine, and I don't know if you would say it was your.
You take a break?
I just want to take a breath. Just, I think she's already responded to whatever Giddings asked, so just take a break.
At first, Amber Guyger was charged with a less serious crime, but Botham's family and many others felt this was unfair. Large crowds protested in Dallas, questioning why Amber was not facing a stronger charge since Botham had been peacefully sitting in his own home. Another controversy began when police announced they had found a small amount of narcotics in Botham's apartment. His family believed this was an attempt to damage his reputation, while at the same time, no immediate reports were released about whether Amber had been tested for substances. This made many people suspect that police were protecting her because she was one of their own. Due to public pressure, the case was handed over to the Texas Rangers, a special investigation team. They examined Amber's phone records and found that she had been texting her police partner that night, which may have contributed to her confusion. They also looked into how Amber was treated after the incident. When she was placed in a police car for questioning, a police supervisor told officers to turn off the audio recording, raising suspicions that she was receiving special treatment. Many tenants in the apartment building said they had sometimes confused floors because they all looked alike. However, investigators pointed out key differences, like Botham's bright red doormat, things Amber should have noticed. With the growing evidence and public protests for justice, Amber's charge was upgraded to a more serious crime. Amber Guyger's trial began on September 23, 2019, in Dallas, Texas. Because the case was widely known, many people across the country watched closely, waiting to see if she would face serious consequences. Prosecutors spoke first, arguing that Amber made reckless choices the night she entered Botham's apartment. They explained that police officers are trained to stay calm and assess situations before acting, but Amber fired her weapon without understanding what was happening. They also showed text messages she sent to her police partner just before the shooting, saying she was distracted and not paying attention to her surroundings. They pointed out that she ignored obvious signs like Botham's bright red doormat, proving she was in the wrong apartment. Amber's lawyers told a different story. They argued that she was extremely tired after a long shift and truly believed she was entering her own apartment. When she saw Botham, she thought he was a threat and reacted out of fear. They claimed she acted in self-defense, meaning she believed she had to protect herself. Amber testified in her own defense, crying as she told the jury she never meant to harm an innocent person. She said she wished she had lost her life instead of Botham. While her words made an emotional impact, prosecutors argued her explanation was not believable.
All right, you also indicated that you've never done CPR before.
No, I have not.
But you were trained to do CPR in the academy, were you not?
We were trained. I've never done it on an actual person.
All right, so at least then to the extent that you weren't suggesting that you didn't know how to properly perform CPR.
They taught us briefly in the academy.
You knew how to perform CPR properly, right?
I never done it on a person. I couldn't say I actually.
Ms. Guyger, were you trained to do CPR properly?
Yes, we were.
Okay, were you at those classes?
Yes, I was.
Were you paying attention during those classes?
Yes, I was.
Did you properly perform CPR on Mr. John?
No, I did not.
And you could have, right?
I tried to do a little CPR.
Why would you try and do a little CPR on a man who's dying who needs your full attention?
Because I had to keep getting up to see where I was at.
That was more important than giving life-saving help to this man.
I had no idea where I was at.
You were able to tell the 911 call taker very, very soon on that you were in apartment 1478. After that moment, why couldn't you have given him full, undivided, and proper attention?
I was still on the phone with...
You can put the phone on speakerphone, ma'am.
I had so much stuff racing through my head.
Oh, obviously, you were also able, at least on 2 occasions, to, you must have stopped completely giving him CPR when you sent a message to Martin Rivera saying, I need you, hurry, right?
I did text him that.
Okay, and so you must have at that point stopped CPR entirely.
Yes, I did.
And then, not even a minute later, you must have stopped CPR entirely again to send a second message to Martin Rivera.
I was already out in the hallway.
The jury listened to many witnesses. Botham's best friend.
And last read on 9/6 of 2018.
Yeah, there's actually a response. All he said in response was LOL at 7 p.m. on September 6th.
Did you see that LOL on September 6th?
No. I woke up to it the next morning.
And when you woke up the next morning, what else did you learn?
I got a phone call about 6 in the morning. I was told that Botham had been shot and he didn't make it. I slumped to the floor and I just kept screaming, wait. I hung up the phone and I called Botham 7 times. And there was no answer.
One important witness was Joshua Brown, a neighbor who said he heard voices and loud noises that night. Later, Joshua was killed in a separate, suspicious event, which raised even more public concern. One unexpected moment in the courtroom surprised many people. Botham's younger brother, Brant Jean, needed to talk.
I don't want to say twice or for the 100th time what you've or how much you've taken from us. I think you know that. But I just if you truly are sorry, I know I can speak for myself. I forgive you. And I know if you go to God and ask Him, He will forgive you. And I don't think anyone could say it. Again, I'm speaking for myself, not even behalf of my family. But I love you just like anyone else. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please?
Yes.
While this act of forgiveness touched many and even made the judge cry, Botham's family made it clear that forgiveness did not mean Amber should avoid punishment. Another witness, Texas Ranger David Armstrong, said Amber acted reasonably, but the judge did not allow the jury to hear his opinion because it could unfairly influence their decision. After both sides presented their arguments, the jury discussed the case. They asked about the castle doctrine, a law that allows people to use force if someone enters their home. Amber's lawyers argued this law should protect her because she believed she was in her own apartment, but prosecutors disagreed. After less than 2 days, the jury reached a decision.
The jury having reached a verdict, Ms. Guyger and your team, would you please stand? We, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, Amber Guyger, guilty of murder as charged in the indictment. No outburst.
This was unusual because police officers are rarely convicted in similar cases. Botham's family felt relieved, but also deeply sad, knowing nothing could bring him back. The next day, the jury decided Amber's punishment. Prosecutors asked for 28 years in prison, Botham's age if he had lived that year. Instead, the jury sentenced her to 10 years.
Yesterday, we saw the conviction of Amber Guyger, and today we heard the sentence of 10 years in prison. That 10 years in prison is 10 years for her reflection and for her to change her life. But there is much more to be done by the city of Dallas. The corruption that we saw during this process must stop. And it must stop for you. Because after now, I leave Dallas. But you live in Dallas. Yes. And it must stop for everyone. Yes. The contamination of a crime scene that we saw coming out of this case is one that must never happen again. Yes. That's right. The poor training or the poor use of what should have been training is what we see coming out of this case. Yes. That should never, ever happen again. Amen. And if this was applied in the way that it ought to have been taught, my son would have been alive today. Yes. Yes. If Amber Guyger was trained not to shoot in the heart, my son would be standing here today. He was no threat. He was no threat to her. He had no reason to pose a threat to her because he was in his own apartment, in his sanctuary, in the place in which he paid a lot of money to be in. He paid rent to be there. He had every right to be there in whatever state he was in. Yet still, his privacy was violated. Amen. She intruded on him. Yes, she did. And that was not enough. She killed him.
There was sworn testimony that revealed things during this trial that gave me concern. What you saw and heard was disheartening. And I can only imagine the community's perception of who we are as a Dallas Police Department, and if we're truly honest with one another, what law enforcement is or who law enforcement is across this country. What I can say is that the testimony that came out in this trial is not reflective of the men and women of the Dallas Police Department. I stand before you today fully committed to making the changes that need to be made. I'm committed to leading a city that will have the trust of the community. All of the things that were heard and brought out during the trial will be turned over to the Internal Affairs Division, and all of those things will be under investigation.
Amber Guyger and her lawyers tried to challenge the decision. They argued that she had made a mistake and did not deserve such a harsh punishment. They believed the jury did not fully consider how tired and confused she was that night. However, every time they appealed, the courts rejected their request. Even Texas's highest court refused to change the sentence. Her lawyers then asked the U.S. Supreme Court, but they also declined. This meant Amber had to serve her full 10-year sentence. At the same time, Botham Jean's family took legal action of their own. They filed a civil lawsuit against Amber, asking for financial compensation for their pain and loss. In November 2024, a jury ordered Amber to pay almost $100 million to Botham's family. The family said they would use the money for charity through the Botham Jean Foundation, which helps others in Botham's honor. While Amber was in prison, she became eligible for early release after 5 years. In 2024, she had her first chance to ask for parole. The request came on Botham's birthday. In the end, Amber's request for early release was denied, and she remained in prison. However, she will be able to ask again in 2026. Botham's family has promised to keep fighting to make sure she serves all 10 years. After his loss, important changes were made in his honor. Botham Jean Boulevard in Dallas was created and will always remind people about Botham. The Botham Jean Act helps protect people in Texas by requiring police officers to keep their cameras turned on during important investigations. Botham Jean's family keeps his memory alive through the Botham Jean Foundation, which continues to help others. Botham's kindness, talent, and respect for people made him special, and this foundation makes sure his kindness lives on. May Botham Jean rest in peace. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Don't hesitate to leave your opinion about the case below, and I will see you next time. Stay safe.
And I read some of the stuff you said about you don't think that we gave enough attention to finding Dylan yesterday.
You should be doing backflips right now to take this polygraph test. You were the last person to have seen your son before he disappeared.
And please, I hope you didn't hurt him. I hope you did not hurt him.
In November 2012, 13-year-old Dylan Redwine disappeared while on a court-ordered Thanksgiving visit with his father, Mark Redwine, in Vallecito, Colorado. Months later, his remains would be discovered scattered in the mountains near his father's home. What happened to Dylan? Dylan Nicholas Redwine was born on February 6, 1999. He was a friendly and active boy who enjoyed spending time with his friends and family. He lived with his mother, Elaine Hall, formerly Elaine Redwine, in Colorado Springs, Colorado. His parents, Elaine and Mark Redwine, had divorced years earlier, and their relationship was bitter, leading to a long custody battle over Dylan and his older brother, Corey. By 2012, Elaine had primary custody of Dylan. His relationship with his father was strained. Dylan had told friends and family that he did not want to visit Mark for Thanksgiving that year and was uncomfortable being alone with him. However, a court order required Dylan to spend the holiday with his father at Mark's home in Vallecito, Colorado. The tension between Dylan and Mark had escalated the previous year when Dylan and Corey made a disturbing discovery. In 2011, while using their father's computer, they found explicit photos of Mark wearing women's lingerie and eating feces from a diaper. The images disgusted and disturbed them. Dylan shared the photos with friends and was humiliated by what he had seen. In the months leading up to the Thanksgiving visit, he avoided contact with Mark and was described as reluctant to see him again. Despite this, Dylan boarded a flight from Denver to Durango on November 18, 2012. Upon arrival, he texted his mother to confirm that Mark had picked him up, adding a scowling emoji to express his displeasure. Surveillance footage later showed them at Walmart and McDonald's before heading to Mark's house on County Road 500, north of Vallecito Reservoir. That night, Dylan asked Mark if he could sleep over at a friend's house, but Mark refused. Dylan was forced to stay at his father's home. By the next day, Dylan was missing. On the evening of November 18, 2012, 13-year-old Dylan Redwine arrived at his father's home in Vallecito, Colorado, for a court-ordered Thanksgiving visit. He had planned to meet his friend, Ryan Nava, at 6:30 a.m. the next morning in Bayfield, but he would never show up. That night, Dylan was actively texting friends, making plans for his visit. At 9:37 p.m., his phone activity suddenly stopped, which was highly unusual for someone constantly connected through texting, gaming, and social media. The next morning, Ryan expected Dylan to arrive as planned. When he didn't, Ryan sent him a message at 6:46 a.m. asking, "Where are you?" but received no response. By midday, concern turned to alarm as Dylan's friends repeatedly tried to contact him, but his phone remained silent. Mark later told police that he woke up around 7:30 a.m. and saw Dylan asleep on the couch watching Nickelodeon. He said he left shortly after to run errands in Durango, about 20 miles away, and assumed Dylan would wake up and meet his friends, so he went to nap. Receipts confirmed that Mark was in Durango between 8 a.m. and noon, but when he returned home, he claimed Dylan was gone. At first, he said he wasn't concerned, believing Dylan had simply walked to meet his friends. As the afternoon passed with no sign of Dylan, Mark's concern grew. At 4:30 p.m., Mark called Elaine Hall, Dylan's mother, to ask if she had heard from him. Immediately sensing something was wrong, Elaine pressed him for details. When she asked where he had looked, Mark admitted he hadn't actually searched for Dylan. He had only called a few of his son's friends. Frustrated and alarmed, Elaine urged him to start searching immediately. By 6 p.m., after 11 hours had passed, Mark finally contacted police and reported Dylan missing. That evening, La Plata County Sheriff's deputies arrived at Mark's house. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle, but Dylan's backpack, cell phone, and iPod were missing, suggesting he had either taken them or someone had removed them. At first, authorities considered the possibility that Dylan ran away, but the evidence did not support this theory. He had never run away before, was excited about seeing his friends, and most concerning, his phone activity had completely stopped the night before, something entirely out of character for him. By that night, a full-scale search for Dylan was organized. Sheriff's deputies, search and rescue teams, and volunteers combed the dense forests and shoreline around Mark's remote home near Vallecito Reservoir. The mountain conditions and low temperature made law enforcement worry that if Dylan was lost, he wouldn't survive long. Authorities launched a search operation using helicopters with infrared cameras, ATVs, horses, and drones to scan difficult-to-reach areas. Hundreds of volunteers joined the effort, determined to find Dylan. On November 21, 2012, investigators brought in cadaver dogs, trained to detect human remains. The dogs alerted near the dam of Vallecito Lake, suggesting the possible presence of a body. For the next 3 days, dive teams and sonar-equipped boats searched the water, but no remains were found. With no evidence in the lake, search teams shifted their focus back to the mountains and forests surrounding Mark's home. As the investigation progressed, several inconsistencies in Mark's story emerged. A neighbor reported seeing Mark's porch light on at 2 a.m., but by sunrise, it was off. Mark claimed he had been asleep all night, but if that were true, why had the light been on? Another element was Dylan's phone silence. His last known activity was at 9:37 p.m. on November 18th, after which there were no calls, texts, or social media activity. Investigators suspected his phone had either been shut off manually or destroyed. Mark's behavior also raised concerns. Despite Dylan being missing, he made no real effort to search for his son. He never drove around looking for him, didn't check places Dylan might have gone, and seemed indifferent while law enforcement and volunteers searched. He insisted Dylan had probably run off and would return on his own.
I do believe Mark has something to do with Dylan's disappearance. I do believe he knows more. He's done everything other than look for Dylan. And that's what makes me suspicious.
I think Mark has something to do with it. I think he's either got him hidden out or, done something and disposed. I strongly think that he's involved.
Why?
He hasn't done a single thing since Dylan has been gone.
Why do you say that? What has he not done?
He hasn't been to any of the benefits. He wasn't there for Dylan's birthday vigil. He hasn't helped at all with the Find Missing Dylan Redwine Fund.
And that's offensive to you?
Very.
With no leads and no sign of Dylan, authorities expanded the search radius. Between November 20th, 24, 2012, teams covered hundreds of miles, stretching from Vallecito Lake to Middle Mountain. They went door to door, distributed flyers, and set up roadblocks, questioning drivers in case anyone had seen Dylan. The effort extended deep into the Rocky Mountains, where Mark had frequently camped and hiked. By the end of November, authorities no longer believed Dylan had wandered off. His sudden phone silence, missing belongings, and Mark's evasive behavior suggested something far more sinister. What started as a missing persons case was now a criminal investigation. For months, Dylan's whereabouts remained unknown. The community held vigils in his honor, hoping for a miracle. But in June 2013, 7 months after Dylan's disappearance, he would be found. 7 months after Dylan disappeared, searchers made a grim discovery. On June 27, 2013, in a remote area of Middle Mountain, about 8 miles from Mark Redwine's house, they found partial human remains. The bones were later confirmed to belong to Dylan Redwine. Along with the remains, searchers found scraps of clothing scattered near a dirt road used by ATVs. The area was rugged and hard to reach, far from where Dylan could have gone on his own. Wildlife experts determined that animals did not move the remains there, meaning someone placed them on purpose. Investigators were left with a big problem. Dylan's skull was missing. Without it, they could not determine how he had died. The coroner ruled the cause of death undetermined, though investigators strongly suspected foul play. For over 2 years, the case remained unsolved. Then, on November 1st, 2015, hikers in Middle Mountain found a human skull about 1.5 miles from where Dylan's other remains had been discovered. Forensic experts confirmed it was Dylan's. The skull showed 2 sharp cuts and a large fracture, consistent with a violent blow to the head. The injuries happened before or shortly after death, ruling out an accident or animal attack. Investigators also believed the skull had been moved, likely to hide evidence. This discovery confirmed what had long been suspected. Dylan Redwine was murdered. From the start, detectives suspected Mark Redwine. While they did not immediately name him as a suspect, they closely examined his behavior, statements, and alibi. Over time, his story had inconsistencies, and forensic evidence only made him look worse.
We were inseparable. I mean, anywhere I was, he was right there beside me. You know, he would come to me before he would go to his mom. You know, I think in many ways that was part of the problems that developed in our relationship, was because while she was out earning a career, it was very difficult for her to lose sight of the fact that she wasn't there bonding with Dylan the way I was. And I think that that was a huge problem for her. And I think that that has been a problem for her for a long time now.
I have to ask you this question. Did you have anything whatsoever to do with Dylan's disappearance?
Absolutely not. I would never do anything to harm that boy. I know they're looking at me as being involved in some kind of kidnapping scheme, which is one of the reasons why I want them to look closely at me. Because the more that they look at me, the more they're going to realize that I have nothing to do with this. There's no possible way I would ever do anything to cause harm or misery to my son.
When I got home, the TV was on, and it was on to one of the Nickelodeon channels that he's always watching.
A texter? It doesn't make sense that he stopped texting that night. If Dylan was just going out to see his friends that day, he wouldn't have taken all of his belongings. None of his belongings have been found. Mark talks about his backpack and a fishing pole. Dylan is not a big fisher person. He didn't even know how to thread his own line. Dylan was not watching Nickelodeon. Dylan watched MTV. He doesn't know his kid well enough to make up a good lie. I believe Mark was the last person to see Dylan.
Dylan didn't really look up to Mark. They had a relationship, but it was never what Dylan had wanted. It was always what Mark had wanted, which was always to be on the road.
Really?
Never there.
Why do you call your father Mark instead of Dad or
Because he's not a father to me. A father is someone who cares for their kids and, you know, would do anything for them. Be a role model, someone to look up to.
I believe that you're being very disrespectful, and I believe that everything that's coming out of your mouth is perpetuated by your mother.
I have my own mouth. I can say my own words.
Then use it.
I am at you. I don't like you. I hate you, and you have been nothing of a father since the last 10 years.
Police searched Mark's home multiple times looking for any sign of Dylan. In August 2013, they brought in cadaver dogs, trained to detect the scent of human remains. The dogs alerted in several locations, including the living room, washing machine, and Mark's truck. This suggested that a dead body had been inside those places. Forensic teams tested the house further and found traces of Dylan's blood in several areas. Using luminol, a chemical that detects hidden blood, they found it on the couch, floor, coffee table, and under a rug. Since Mark remodeled his home in 2011, Dylan had no reason to have bled there unless something violent had happened. As police dug deeper, disturbing information about Mark came to light. His ex-wife, Betsy Horvath, told investigators that years before Dylan's disappearance, Mark had once casually mentioned how to hide a body, saying, "If I ever had to get rid of a body, I'd leave it in the mountains." At the time, it seemed like an odd comment. But now, with Dylan's remains found exactly where Mark once said he would hide a body, it felt like a confession. That's not the only confession he seems to have made. Watch out.
Well, when I got home and he wasn't here, I didn't think much of it at the time. Because it's not unlike him to go wandering off, and he'll walk down to the river across the street, or, you know, he might go up into the campground where he can be next to the river up there. They just notify the local authorities to keep an eye out for him, make contact with him, so somebody can bang him in the head and say, "Hey, your dad's trying to get a hold of you, or your friends are trying to get a hold of you, you need to communicate."
Then another key detail surfaced. In April 2013, months before Dylan's remains were found, a witness saw Mark driving alone on Middle Mountain Road, the exact area where Dylan's bones would later be discovered. This was a remote, hard-to-reach location that few people traveled to, especially in the winter. Why was Mark there? After years of investigation and growing forensic evidence, law enforcement finally made their move against Mark Redwine. On July 20th, 2017, authorities tracked him down in Bellingham, Washington, where he ran away and had been living and working as a long-haul truck driver.
There's a passenger, Just keep your hands up, buddy. Just keep your hands up.
Dolly wall, watch the cab.
I got the cab. Around me, go around back. Yep. Just keep your hands up.
Don't move, bud, okay? I'm good. Do not move. I'm good. Drop a cigarette.
He was arrested without incident and charged with second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. Following his arrest, Mark was extradited to Colorado, where he was held in custody as he awaited trial. His trial, however, would not come quickly. It was delayed multiple times due to a series of legal motions, Mark changing defense attorneys, and eventually the COVID-19 pandemic. After nearly 4 years of postponements, the case finally went before a jury in June 2021 in Durango, Colorado. During the trial, prosecutors laid out their case, arguing that Mark killed Dylan in a fit of rage after Dylan confronted him about the explicit photos, showing them to the jury. They described how the relationship between father and son had become strained ever since Dylan and his brother Corey had discovered the disturbing images on their father's computer. Prosecutors revealed that Corey had texted the photos to Mark in August 2012, months before Dylan's disappearance. This exchange had enraged Mark, leading to heated arguments between him and his sons. The prosecution suggested that Dylan's knowledge of these photos, whether he directly confronted his father about them or not, had triggered Mark's violent outburst on the night of November 18th, 2012. On November 18th, 2012, while driving from the airport to his home, Mark Redwine reportedly criticized Dylan's mother and brother, calling them a bad influence. During the ride, Dylan texted his brother, Corey, asking for the explicit photos of their father. In the message, Dylan wrote, "Hey, send me those poop pics of Papa because he gave me a speech about you guys being a bad example, and I want to show him who he really is." This exchange suggested that Dylan was frustrated with Mark and possibly planning to confront him about the photos that evening. Dylan's mother, Elaine Hall, testified about her son's reluctance to visit Mark for Thanksgiving, recalling how he had been dreading the trip and had made plans to spend as little time as possible with his father. One of the most emotional moments of the trial came when Corey Redwine took the stand. He recounted how discovering their father's disturbing photos had permanently changed the way he and Dylan saw Mark. He told the jury that Dylan had even talked about using the photos against their father, proving that this secret had become a major source of tension between them.
And was there a point in time when Dylan used the defendant's computer?
Yes.
Did he find something on the computer?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what he found?
He found pictures of Mark dressed in women's clothing, wearing a diaper, taking selfies of him wearing the clothing, wearing the diaper, eating the feces that was in the diaper, and just that's pretty much it.
Mark did not testify in his own defense. His legal team attempted to suggest that Dylan had either run away and died due to exposure or had been attacked by a wild animal, but the forensic evidence made these claims impossible to believe. After a 5-week trial, the jury deliberated for less than 5 hours before returning with a guilty verdict on all charges. On July 16, 2021, nearly 9 years after Dylan's death, Mark Redwine was officially convicted of second-degree murder and child abuse, resulting in death. 3 months later, on October 8, 2021, Mark stood before the court for sentencing. The judge, expressing the severity of Mark's actions and his complete lack of remorse, imposed the maximum sentence allowed by law, 48 years in prison. Following his conviction, Mark filed an appeal, arguing that the introduction of the explicit photos during trial unfairly biased the jury. However, legal experts consider it unlikely that an appeals court will overturn the verdict, given the strength of the forensic and circumstantial evidence presented against him. Dylan's family has continued to honor his memory. In Bayfield, Colorado, a memorial bench has been placed in his name, serving as a quiet tribute to his life. Each year on February 6th, his birthday, and on November 19th, the anniversary of his disappearance, those who knew him gather to remember him. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your opinion about the case, and I will see you next time. Stay safe. In the early hours of August 13th, 2018, 34-year-old Shanann Watts, who was 15 weeks pregnant, returned home to Frederick, Colorado after a business trip. Her friend Nicole Atkinson dropped her off. Later that morning, Shanann missed a pregnancy doctor's appointment and didn't answer calls. By 1:30 p.m., Atkinson grew concerned and called 911, asking for a police welfare check.
County Communications, this is Stacey. Hi, Stacey. My name's Nicole, and I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. I dropped her off at her house at 2 in the morning last night because we were out of town together, and we were on the way back from the airport, and she was having issues, and she's pregnant, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning, and I've gone to her house, and her car's there, and stuff like that, but she won't answer the door, she won't answer phone calls, she won't answer text messages, and I'm just really, really concerned, and she had a doctor's appointment this morning, and she didn't go to it, and I don't know what to do. I've called him and talked to him, and he said that she went on a play date with her other two daughters, but, like, if she went on a play date, they're both in car seats. Why would she not take her car?
Officers found Shanann's car in the garage, her keys, phone, purse, and wallet inside the house, but Shanann and her daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste, were missing. The house was locked, and nothing seemed disturbed. Chris Watts, Shanann's 33-year-old husband, told officers he last saw her around 5 a.m. before leaving for work, claiming she planned to take the girls to a friend's house.
So I posted on the 12th. That was on Chase. It was like $15. It was very kind of vague. Taxi cab limousine service.
Does she have a passport?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is. I'm sure she keeps that one.
Kids have passports?
No. They're old enough.
How old are they?
4 and 3. Yeah, they're old enough. Oh, they're over.
What's this door right here go to? It's locked. You have a key for it?
Yeah, they wake up and they'll just go right here and just play with that.
Well, that's private.
So you normally keep it locked? Yeah, because they would go in there, they'd be in the soap. Like last time we had Vaseline everywhere. So that was not fun. So does she normally make the beds, the kids' beds? No. Not
We're gonna try. All right. All right.
As police and neighbors searched, a neighbor, Nate Tranastic, provided security footage from his home. The video showed Chris backing his truck into the garage in the early hours, loading it with unknown items, but no sign of Shanann or the girls leaving.
Nice to meet you. So we're just waiting for our sergeant to come over, and we'd like to go through your house. Are you okay with us searching through your house? All right. We'll have you sign a consent form. We just want to see if you left a note or anything inconspicuous, something like that. All right.
Watching the footage with officers, Chris appeared oddly calm, and his statements didn't add up. Investigators noted he spoke about his family in the past tense, raising suspicions. By August 14th, with the family still missing, police brought in the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and FBI, and classified the case as an endangered missing persons investigation. That day, Chris appeared on local news, standing on his porch, pleading for his family's return. However, his nervous body language, rocking, licking lips, folding arms, and impersonal references to his wife and daughters, calling them they and those kids instead of using their names, made investigators even more suspicious.
What's going through your mind right now?
I don't know where my kids are. I don't know where Shanann is. It's not something I could ever fathom would happen in my lifetime, and I have no inclination of where she is. Yeah. We've reached out to friends, family. Both of our families are back in North Carolina, so they're beside themselves. Like, we all have friends in North Carolina. We have friends here. We have friends everywhere, and not knowing like where she is or where the kids are, I don't know what to do right now. I just feel so alone in this house right now, and I don't know where to go from here right now. Just knowing that it's come to this and that she didn't come home last night with the kids. Like, Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, if you're out there, please, just come home.
And you, yesterday, when her friends were calling frantic, something in you said, well, she'll just be home.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like her not to answer a phone call or a text. And when her friend Nicole showed up at the door, I was just like, all right, something's up. And I came home, and it was like I walked into a ghost town. Like, everything, she wasn't here, kids weren't here. It was just, they were here and then they were gone.
Yeah. And did you see the kids in the morning too?
Just in the monitor.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you leave really early.
Mm-hmm.
CBI agent Tammy Lee later said his on-camera behavior increased their urgency to get him into an interrogation room. By August 15th, investigators uncovered serious evidence of foul play. They discovered Chris was having an affair with his 30-year-old co-worker, Nickel Kessinger, contradicting his earlier denials. That morning, Chris voluntarily went to the police station, accompanied by his father. Investigators asked him to take a polygraph test, which he failed completely.
It is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. And I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise.
Chris,
I know.
Chris, stop. It's time. Just stop for a minute. Take a deep breath. I want you to take a deep breath right now.
There's a reason you feel sick to your stomach. And when people hold stuff inside, it makes you physically ill. And I can just tell on your face, I could tell from the second you walked in that you were wanting to just come clean and just be done with this. And I appreciate that, because you knew sitting down in that chair that you weren't going to pass today, and you knew I was going to find out because I told you that. And then you continued to stay knowing that you could, at the end, say, you know what, I just need to get this off my chest. Like, I just need to tell you what happened. We're not here to play games. We're not here to do any of that with you. We just want to know what happened. So can you start from the beginning and tell us what happened?
I'm not proud of it. Like, I didn't think anything like that could happen. I didn't think I'd ever do it, but I did.
I know. Keep going.
And she accused me of it. I denied it. I cheated on her, and I feel horrible for it. Like, she was pregnant, and it was, I don't want to, I didn't hurt her. I cheated on her. I hurt her emotionally. I cheated on her. And I feel absolutely horrible about this, but that's what I've been holding. When I didn't go to the Rocky game, I was with her.
Okay.
I went to dinner with her.
Okay.
Meanwhile, authorities searched a remote Anadarko petroleum oil field where Chris worked. Using GPS data from his truck and aerial drones, they spotted a white bedsheet near a tank battery and disturbed earth, suggesting a shallow grave. The sheet matched pillowcases and bedding found in the Watts home's trash can, linking the house to the oil site. CBI agent Tammy Lee suggested a scenario. Had Shanann hurt the girls, prompting him to retaliate? Chris then asked to speak with his father, Ronnie. Alone with him, but still being recorded, Chris finally confessed, but with a lie. He admitted to strangling Shanann, but claimed it was in a rage after seeing her smother Bella and Celeste. Investigators were skeptical, but they had what they needed: his admission and the victims' locations.
I don't want to protect her.
What?
I don't want to protect her.
You don't want to protect her?
I don't know what else to say.
What happened?
Huh?
She hurt him?
Yeah. And then I freaked out.
What now?
And I freaked out and I hurt her.
You hurt her? Did they leave after that for a long time? So she started hurting kids.
They were.
How old you guys want to What? She smelled it. Or choking. No.
I didn't hear anything. When I was downstairs, they came back up and they were gone.
That evening, authorities recovered Shanann's body from a shallow grave near the oil tanks and found Bella and Celeste submerged in separate crude oil storage tanks. By the morning of August 16th, rescue crews carefully removed the girls' bodies from the oil tanks, where they had been submerged for 4 days. That same day, Chris appeared in Weld County Court for a bond hearing, now formally charged with the murders. The tragic reality was now clear. Shanann had been murdered in her home, while Bella and Celeste were taken alive to the oil site and killed there. GPS records later confirmed Chris drove straight from his house to the oil field that morning. In just 3 days, Chris was in custody, and all 3 victims had been found. All 3 victims died from asphyxiation. Shanann had been strangled, while Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3, were smothered. Shanann's body, exhumed on August 16th, was buried in a shallow grave, wearing only a t-shirt and underwear. The coroner noted abrasions on her neck and face, likely from pressure marks, but no severe internal injuries. Her strangulation was slow, not instantaneous, according to Weld County District Attorney Michael Rourke. Bella's autopsy revealed she fought for her life. She had blunt force trauma to her jaw, cuts and bruises in her mouth, and bite marks on her tongue. Prosecutors concluded Bella fought for her life as she was smothered. Celeste showed no external injuries apart from the effects of the crude oil she had been submerged in for 4 days. Investigators compiled a 2,000-page discovery file of evidence against Chris Watts including forensic analysis, text messages, interviews, and CCTV footage. Key physical evidence directly linked him to the crime. A fitted bedsheet found at the oil site matched the Watts master bed linens, with the matching pillowcases and top sheet discovered in the kitchen trash. This strongly suggested that Chris had transported Shanann's body using the bedding before disposing of it.
Smell-wise.
So that one's the one that needs to go by itself?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can just like drape it over this bar.
GPS data from his work truck and phone records confirmed that on August 13th, he drove straight to the oil site after leaving his home, proving he had planned where to dispose of the bodies. His phone logs also showed other suspicious activity. That morning, before Shanann was even reported missing, he had already unenrolled Bella and Celeste from school and contacted a realtor about selling the family home. The next day, while still pretending to search for his family, he disposed of incriminating items in a neighborhood dumpster, including his clothing and the Yankees-branded blanket that had belonged to his daughters. Digital records also revealed the breakdown of his marriage in the months leading up to the murders. Investigators recovered texts between Chris and Shanann, showing her pleading with him to fix their relationship, while Chris became increasingly distant and uninterested. Shanann had been actively trying to save their marriage, sending self-help books and writing heartfelt messages, but Chris barely responded. In the weeks before the murders, Shanann confided in friends that her husband had become cold and detached. Meanwhile, Chris was secretly planning a new life without her. He had told co-workers that he would be working alone at a remote site on August 13th, the same place where the bodies were later found. He had also searched online for relationship advice, looked up vacation spots, and even browsed apartment rentals. Everything pointed to him preparing for a future without his family while keeping up the facade of a normal life. A crucial piece of evidence came from Chris's mistress, Nicole Kessinger, a co-worker at Anadarko Petroleum. She came forward to police on August 15th after seeing news reports about the missing family. Kessinger revealed that she had been in a romantic relationship with Chris since June 2018, but he had lied to her. When Kessinger realized Shanann was not an ex-wife, but a missing pregnant woman, she became suspicious and fully cooperated with police. Phone records showed that on August 13th, the very day of the murders, Chris and Kessinger had spoken on the phone multiple times. She later recalled that he seemed strangely unemotional, even as his family had just disappeared.
She said something that's important, that if he didn't have a child on the way, or if she didn't know that, she would have continued the relationship, right?
But he killed his kids. At what point does he think that I'm going to be in a relationship?
I'm not talking about the children. I'm just talking specifically about her. If you only knew, if the kids were still here, and he called you and said, "I'm divorced from my wife," and he gets away with this, do you understand what I'm thinking from his aspect?
I still wouldn't do it. I still wouldn't do it because I'd be like, where did she go?
Okay.
Because I'm under the impression that she's a really good mom. Like, he never bashed her momming skills. Like, no, I wouldn't, no.
Okay.
No.
And you see where I'm trying to take that?
Yes.
So, you guys never had a conversation about the child, period?
I didn't know at all.
All right. And by your words, if you did know, you would have ended the relationship.
Well, because it wouldn't have made sense to me that he's like, I'm getting separated. Oh, by the way, I have a baby on the way. It's like,
that's 15 weeks.
You are a liar. You're just trying to sleep with me. That's what I would have probably interpreted that as, and I'd have just shut that off at work, and that would have been the end of it.
Okay.
On the same day the murders took place, she searched for Shanann's name and read news reports about the missing family. In the days that followed, she also Googled Amber Frey, the mistress from the Scott Peterson case, and phrases like, "Do people hate Amber Frey?" and whether Frey had profited from a book deal. With Chris's confession and physical evidence aligning, police had enough to charge him with all 3 murders. However, the full truth remained unclear until February 2019, when he gave a 5-hour confession, admitting to premeditated murder rather than a crime of passion. He described waiting for Shanann to fall asleep before strangling her. As she struggled, her last words were, "Chris, this is a great life, and you're going to throw it all away?" The attack lasted long minutes, but Shanann didn't resist, possibly thinking he wouldn't go through with it. Moments later, 4-year-old Bella walked in and saw her mother's lifeless body. "What's wrong with Mommy?" she asked. Chris told her Shanann was sick and needed a doctor. He wrapped Shanann in a bedsheet, carried her downstairs, and loaded her into his truck. Bella and Celeste, still alive and confused, sat in the back seat beside their mother's corpse as Chris drove 45 minutes to the oil site. During the drive, Bella noticed the smell and innocently asked, "Daddy, it smells." At Survey 319, Chris dragged Shanann's body out of the truck and placed her on the ground before turning to Celeste, who clutched her blue blankie. Using the blanket, he smothered the 3-year-old in the back seat, killing her in front of her sister. Celeste did not fight back, likely due to her young age, and within moments, she was gone. Bella, watching in horror, cried out, "Daddy, no!" Her final words before Chris turned on her next. Unlike Celeste, Bella struggled fiercely for her life, twisting her head side to side, biting her tongue, and fighting as he smothered her. But Chris overpowered her, taking her life in the same way he had taken her sister's. With all 3 victims dead, Chris dragged Shanann's body to a shallow pit he had dug earlier and buried her in the dirt. For his daughters, he opened the hatches of 2 oil storage tanks and one by one shoved their bodies through the tight 8-inch openings, submerging them in crude oil. DA Michael Rourke later described how Chris threw away his daughters as if they were garbage, even separating them so they would not be together in death. The effort was so brutal and careless that investigators later found scratches on Bella's body and strands of her hair caught in the tank hatch, evidence of the force used to push her through. In his 2019 confession, Chris admitted that he had no real plan beyond hiding the bodies, believing that the oil site was remote enough that they might never be found. He briefly contemplated suicide that day, feeling he didn't deserve to live, but ultimately he chose to go home, clean up, and fabricate his cover story instead.
Just wait.
Hi guys, say
What's
hi
going
Bella. We gotta get you dressed, kid.
I
Look
know,
what Bella's
right?
eating. Bella's eating some of the ingredients.
She got a nice little bowl of chocolate chips.
Look at that. What is that, Bella? Can you show them? What is it? Is it chocolate?
Is it chocolate?
It's chocolate mini morsels, right? Yeah, good job. So she's been eating my peanut butter and the chocolate morsels so far today. So we're gonna let a few more people hop on and then we're gonna get cooking here.
Despite finally confessing, Chris has provided very little explanations for his actions. In the February 2019 interview, he admitted that he was not in a blind rage, but instead felt numb and emotionless as he carried out the murders. Chris Watts admitted that after killing Shanann, he felt nothing and had no urge to stop. He claimed his anger toward her extended to their daughters, seeing them as part of her. He acknowledged his affair with Nicole Kessinger as a catalyst, but insisted she never encouraged him to harm anyone. In prison letters, he revealed he had premeditated the murders, deciding the night before that it would be the last time he tucked in Bella and Celeste. Psychologists classify Watts as a family annihilator, driven by narcissistic entitlement. Rather than face divorce, he chose to eliminate his family, believing he could manipulate those around him. On November
Mr. Watts, why did you kill your wife and 2 children?
Mr. Watts, did you confess?
On November 6, 2018, Watts pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. Despite their grief, Shanann's family requested prosecutors not seek execution, wanting to spare themselves years of legal battles. At his emotional sentencing on November 19th, Shanann's father called him heartless and wished he would see his victims' faces every time he closed his eyes. Her mother, while struggling to understand his betrayal, told him, "Your life is now between you and God." Watts remained silent, refusing to apologize. Judge Marcelo Kopkow sentenced him to 5 life terms without parole, 3 for the murders of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, plus 2 more for killing his daughters as children under 12 in his care. He also received 48 years for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy and 36 years for tampering with the bodies. Even if his life sentences were ever reduced, the additional decades ensure he will never leave prison. May Shanann, Bella, and Celeste rest in peace. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Don't hesitate to leave a like, a comment, and to subscribe to not miss the next videos. Stay safe.
I mean, we just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Lauren Teresa Giddings had just graduated from law school. At 27 years old, she was preparing to take the Georgia bar exam and begin her career as a public defender. She lived in a small apartment complex called Barrister's Hall in Macon, Georgia. But in the summer of 2011, she disappeared. Lauren Giddings was last seen on the evening of Saturday, June 25, 2011. That night, she went out to dinner with some law school friends. The next morning, Lauren's close friends tried to reach her, but she didn't answer any calls or texts. At first, they weren't too alarmed. By Wednesday, June 29th, her friends were seriously worried. They had gone by her apartment several times, knocked on the door, and received no answer. Her car was still in the parking lot. Lights inside were off. One of her friends had a spare key and finally used it to check inside. Everything in the apartment appeared untouched. Her purse, her ID, her keys, and her phone were still there. Nothing seemed stolen or out of place, but there was no sign of Lauren. They contacted the Macon Police Department and reported her missing. Officers responded that evening and began an initial search around the apartment complex. By the next morning, Thursday, June 30th, the search grew more serious. Around 9:40 a.m., officers at the scene noticed a strong smell coming from the garbage bins outside the complex. Inside one of the large rolling trash cans in the parking lot, they found a human torso, wrapped in plastic and stuffed into several trash bags. Police immediately secured the area with crime scene tape. Officers from various departments, including cadaver dogs and forensic teams, were called in. Word quickly spread that human remains had been found right next to the building. Later that same day, while investigators were actively searching the area, a local television station was doing interviews at the scene. One of the people they approached was Stephen McDaniel. In the video, which would later go viral online, McDaniel is seen talking to the reporter about Lauren's disappearance.
I was living there?
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
Did you see her hang out with anyone at the time or anything like that?
I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I haven't seen anything. I mean, You always hear noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much.
And she just recently graduated from Mercer?
Yeah, she and I we were both JD students. We graduated back in May.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
He appears tense, but speaks calmly. Then, the reporter tells him that a body had just been found in the trash can near the apartments. At that moment, McDaniel freezes. He stares off camera, says, "Body," and takes a step back. He tells the reporter he needs to sit down.
About in the parking lot area, I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
After that, a formal investigation into the disappearance of Lauren Giddings began. The investigation started quickly. Police sealed off the complex, brought in cadaver dogs, forensic teams, and interviewed every tenant. Most residents agreed to let officers search their apartments, except one. Stephen McDaniel, who had been cooperative earlier, now refused. He told police, "It's the lawyer in me," claiming he was just protecting his rights. McDaniel, 25, had lived next to Lauren since 2008. Like her, he had just graduated from Mercer University Law School. But while Lauren was outgoing and well-liked, McDaniel was quiet, reclusive, and considered odd. Classmates described him as intelligent but socially disconnected. He wore medieval clothing, had a known obsession with survivalism and weapons, and leaned toward extreme political views. Lauren, however, was kind to him. She once told a friend, "If he's dangerous, I'm probably the only one safe." She didn't know he had developed a disturbing obsession with her.
You seen her?
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Was you friends with Lauren?
Yes.
Look at me when you talk to me, son. Okay? Was you friends with her?
Yes.
Close friends?
Police began to focus on Stephen after cadaver dogs picked up the scent of human remains near his apartment. A search revealed disturbing items: hacksaw packaging matching a saw found nearby, a pair of Lauren's underwear, and flash drives containing illegal 18-plus content. They also discovered McDaniel had stolen master keys to the building, giving him access to all units, including Lauren's. His internet history showed searches on how to make chloroform, and he had purchased bleach and visited wooded areas on his grandfather's land. Walmart surveillance captured him buying boat anchors. Though he didn't own a boat, investigators believed he planned to submerge remains. His computer revealed thousands of posts under the alias SOL, Son of Liberty, detailing methods for dismemberment, chemical knockouts, and feigning insanity. He wrote about violent films, saying he was desensitized to gore, and described attacks in graphic hypotheticals, including how to act insane afterward to avoid prison. A friend who met SOL in person confirmed the author was McDaniel. His behavior before and after the murder added to suspicions. He had broken into neighbors' apartments to steal small items like condoms, something he admitted during a police interview. He lived in isolation, stockpiled food and water, and said he wore the same underwear for days if it still felt clean. His apartment was filled with survival supplies, drink bottles, and writings reflecting paranoia. A child's drawing signed Lauren McDaniel was found on his mirror, at first believed to be a fantasy about Lauren Giddings, but later confirmed to be from his niece, also named Lauren. Police rewatched the June 30th interview McDaniel gave to a local news crew, filmed the same day Lauren's torso was found. At the mention of the word body, his demeanor changed abruptly.
Whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. That's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Investigators now believed it was an act, shock staged for the camera. They suspected he had stayed at the scene to observe, curious about what officers would find. Scratches on his stomach were consistent with defensive wounds, possibly inflicted by Lauren. He claimed he scratched himself in his sleep. During his interrogation, he often sat silent. When asked basic questions like Coke or Pepsi, he replied, "I don't know." Detectives described him as robotic and detached. Though educated in law, McDaniel's behavior became erratic. When presented with the evidence, blood in Lauren's bathroom, items linked to the dismemberment, and the stolen keys, he gave no response. During a hair sample collection, an officer joked about his thick hair. He stayed silent. When asked why a virgin had condoms, he admitted entering other apartments when no one was home. It became clear this was not a crime of passion. It had been carefully planned. McDaniel had studied how to knock someone out, how to cut through bone, and how to hide the body. He researched how to lie to police, how to appear broken, how to fake memory loss. On August 2nd, 2011, more than a month after Lauren vanished, police charged Stephen McDaniel with her premeditated murder. He was already in jail on burglary and illegal content charges. The arrest quickly made national headlines. McDaniel didn't confess right away. He was held at Bibb County Jail while his attorney, Floyd Buford, began building his defense. For years, McDaniel insisted he was innocent. His family, especially his mother, claimed he was being framed. They suggested the stolen keys and other evidence had been planted in his apartment. In jail, McDaniel followed the case closely and worked on his defense. Early pretrial filings included over 300 pages of legal motions. His team challenged the search warrants, the seized evidence, including the flash drive containing minor illegal content, and the forensic interviews. They claimed McDaniel's constitutional rights had been violated and argued that much of the evidence should be thrown out. A psychological report submitted by the defense described traits of obsessive-compulsive disorder and social phobia, but found no signs of psychosis or delusions. Meanwhile, Lauren's family was devastated. Their grief turned to rage in 2018 when McDaniel's father launched a GoFundMe titled Justice for Stephen, asking for $5,000 to help fund an appeal. The page said Stephen had been deprived of seeing his family and deserved another chance in court. It was taken down within hours after raising nothing. Lauren's family called the campaign ridiculous and disgusting. The prosecution had strong circumstantial and forensic evidence tying McDaniel to the crime, but gaps remained. With Lauren's head, arms, and legs never recovered, there was no confirmed cause of death. No one had witnessed the crime, and no surveillance footage captured the act. If McDaniel went to trial, the jury might decide the case lacked proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Then, on the eve of trial in April 2014, McDaniel changed his plea. He confessed. In court, McDaniel admitted to killing Lauren on June 26, 2011. He strangled her in her apartment, dismembered her body in the bathtub, and disposed of her limbs and head in trash bins, including ones near Mercer's Law School just across the street.
That up until the last couple of weeks of your case, I was strongly in your corner. But this computer evidence that came in from the GBI, the fact that you peeping in this Giddings apartment, that was very important. But the basis of the plea was that kind of evidence that came in, plus the graphic, specific, detailed confession that you made to Frank Hogan and I, which we were shocked about in the jail, and which you went into terrific detail about how you killed Lauren Giddings, how you went about decapitating her, carving of her body, how you even sat down and cut off every finger and thumb and appendage on her hands.
He said he had used a stolen master key to get inside, waited for her to fall asleep, then carried out the attack. Only her torso, wrapped in plastic bags, was ever found. His signed confession outlined the timeline of the murder. He admitted to watching Lauren frequently, staring through her windows, and becoming fixated on her. He had even searched online for phrases like how to molest sleeping girls and tried to find nude photos of her. In exchange for his guilty plea and agreement not to appeal, the state dropped its pursuit of the death penalty. McDaniel received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. At sentencing, he read a prepared statement apologizing for what he had done. After his confession and sentencing in 2014, Stephen McDaniel was transferred to the custody of the Georgia Department of Corrections. He is currently serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole, but he will not be eligible until at least 2041. In the years since his conviction, McDaniel has continued to try and challenge the outcome of his case. Motions after motions, he's trying to be released from prison. Though her torso was discovered in the trash just outside her apartment, her other body parts have never been recovered. May Lauren Teresa Giddings to rest in peace. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Don't hesitate to leave your comments below, and I will see you next time. Stay safe.